Hey guys, today we are going to go over hitboxes for the raycasting that we made last episode. And I have built for you guys a very nice graphic here. You have to thank me in the comments. You legally are obligated to, but I made a graphic to show how the hitboxes work. Okay, so there's two different ways to detect entities within a certain location. So you can do execute if entity at e type equals villager distance equals ... whatever value 5. So this checks if there is a villager nearby, and if I'm close, it will pass. The thing is, when you use distance, it actually goes on the origin. So this hitbox you see in F3B means nothing when it comes to distance. What distance actually calculates is the physical distance from the origin of your character. So if I do data get entity at s pause, the distance will go based off of these pause values, and for players, the pause is in the bottom middle of their feet. And for other entities, it's always going to be kind of like the bottom middle of the entity. That's where their pause is. So distance is kind of like a positional calculation between the position of an entity versus your position. That's not what we want. So for our gun, we want to be able to hit this white thing, which is the hitbox of an entity. To do that, we actually have to use the other distance or check for entities, which is dx, dy, dz. And dx, dy, dz basically says, look for an entity in a certain bounding box specified by dx, dy, and dz. So if I go dx equals 2, dy equals 2, dz equals 2, it will pass 2 because 1, 2, and then it found him. Okay, so now if I change that dx, dy, dz down to 1, it will still pass because he is right here and his hitbox is in my range. But if I go back like one block, it will fail if I go back far enough. But you have to keep in mind that it's like a square, a cube. So that is kind of the interesting thing. So when you specify a dx, a dy, and a dz, it's going to be basically a cube based on wherever this command is being played at. And so what if I do 0? Well, if I do 0, it'll be a cube based on where I'm standing. So it'll go out one block, one block, one block. So if I go like this, it will pass. But if I go like this, it will fail. And you can see that it is on, it doesn't lock to the edge of a block. So it's not like locking to a full block, but it is definitely one block for the cube detection radius. Now, so then how do I get something less than a block? Because I don't want to have that big of a hitbox around my bullet. So what if I want to do negative 0.5? Maybe that's less than a block. Well, you'll find that negative 0, if you use negatives, it'll go negative a block. And if you go less than 0, that's just a block less than 0. So we kind of have this issue where the selector's minimum distance is a cube that is 1 by 1 by 1. So that's kind of a problem. So how do we overcome that? And this is how we overcome that with this giant tesseract. Now, but basically what we do is we're going to have the command play from this yellow region. Okay, we're going to offset the command to be down here in this blue region right here. Okay, and then we are going to run the dx equals 0 hitbox. That is a positive quadrant cube as specified by my F3 little triangle. So when I run that hitbox, it will generate hits for anything in this blue region. Okay, so then from any of those things in the blue region that it hits, we are going to go to that entity and we are going to offset backwards by one block or a little bit less than a block, and then run another test to see if it still sees itself. And if it still sees itself, then that means the red and the blue are in fact overlapping, which means that the entity is within this green box of the original command at the yellow point. Okay, so it's a little bit much to wrap your head around, but once you know how to do it, it's very easy, and you just will use it everywhere. So we're going to do that. So inside the shoot function, we're going to go to raycast, we're going to go to loop, and we're going to add this hitbox. So just as I described, execute, all caps. We're going to do execute as at E, type equals villager, and I'm only doing type equals villager so it doesn't hit the player, and we'll fix that in a second. Dx equals 0, and if you say dx equals 0, it will assume dy and dz are 0. Then we will, before doing that, we're going to move it back a little bit. So positioned negative 0.1, negative 0.1, negative 0.1, okay? So that is kind of giving us the offset from the yellow to the corner of the blue. Then we are going to, so now we have the first hitbox. Then we're going to go positioned, and now we're going to go negative, and this is where we actually have our hitbox size. So we're going to go say 0.7, negative 0.7, negative 0.7 to get us to the red. If entity at S dx equals 0, run, say hit. Okay, so we did that, and now we come over here, and you will see that if I shoot here, nothing. If I shoot here, it says hit. And it'll say hit twice because the bullet doesn't stop, and I don't have a prevention for that, so we will fix that. But you can see that it does work properly. Okay, so one thing to note is that with these measurements I have here, basically what it means is that the intersection region is going to be 1 minus 0.7. Okay, so the intersection region is going to be 0.3 cube. So technically, if I want it perfectly centered, I need to say 1.15. And some of you may have picked up on that. But you just have to make sure your math works out here. So you have to do whatever, if you want to have a box detection region of say 0.1 cubes box, then these would be 0.9 because 1 minus 0.9 is 0.1. And then this needs to be whatever half of that is so that it's centered. So 0.05, 0.05, 0.05. In my previous videos on this topic, I didn't include this first offset, mainly because what I was using was 999999. And so 0.01 is negligible. You're looking for exactly when you hit the hitbox. But if you want something that's like an approximation to the hitbox or like a bigger detection region, you do need this initial offset. Otherwise, you're going to have some bias towards the positive quadrant. Okay, so now we can add some adaptations. So we're going to have a type tag for the entities. So we're going to do hashtag gun:target. And then we are going to have a tag called tag equals not this, which will specify the player. So because the way that we do raycasting and the fact that everything handles on fake player scores because it's all individual per player, we can do this. We can do tag at s add this, which means that it is the player. And we can do tag at s remove this, and anything inside the loop or anything going on inside that subfunctions from the loop, an entity that is a player with a tag of this will be the one who shot it. So that's why we can make this assumption here. So now we can go back into the tags, and then we can go entity types. And we can make one called targets. And then we can go replace. That's not really necessary. Let's just add the entities. So the entities could be a villager, or it could be a player for PvP. And obviously you would add something like zombies or whatnot. So execute if entity at E type equals hashtag gun targets. And then we just go ahead and run that. And so as you can see, it does detect targets. So if I type /reload, then inside here, we add an S, then it will say hi for hit for the villager, but it won't hit me. So I can't really hit myself accidentally. Now, one other adjustment from the previous video that fixes for this. So if I shoot, you'll see that there's one particle at my feet. That's just a bug because the first iteration occurs at the feet. So to fix that, you just do positioned like that so that it loads the anchored coordinates for sure inside the other commands being played, such as this one. And that's just like a minor thing. It's not a big deal, honestly. So then the last thing to do is to actually do stuff when it hits. And only allow it to hit once. We can also make it stop or not. So let's go ahead and do this. Function gun:shoot/hit/start. Okay. And so now we can go functions, shoot, hit, start. So inside this, we're going to do tag add s add hit. And then inside the loop, we can say they also can't have the tag of hit, so it doesn't hit multiple times. And then at the end of the loop, we also do tag at e remove hit. So this will just make sure you only hit things once. And then you can do say at s was hit by at p tag equals this. And so I had a question in the comments of a video from before that basically asked, how do you do custom death messages? So this is how you do custom death messages or whatever. So this is how you do custom messages to know like who killed who. And it's really up to your code to know like how they were killed, but you should have all the context you need. So if the entity I'm shooting is supposed to die, I can play this message like at s was killed by at p tag equals this. And that's kind of, it's really up to you. So if I type reload, you'll see that it'll only say hit once, but I do not have any ammo. So if I shoot, it will only say hit once, and it says the villager was hit by Cloud Wolf. Just like that. And so that's it for this video, guys. That's the hitboxing. Very simple. Just wanted to go through it and really describe what's going on. If you thought that was useful, please leave a like. Next video, we will cover dealing damage, custom damage amounts to both players and villagers, depending on what they are. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.